What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, cancer cells are quietly forming inside almost every single human body on the planet, including yours? And the only reason most people never get cancer is because their body has a built in system that hunts those cells down and destroys them before they ever get a chance to grow. Now, here's the terrifying part: that protective system, the one thing standing between you and cancer, is being slowly, silently switched off. And the shocking truth is, the very food sitting in your kitchen right now could either be feeding that system or destroying it. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what science says you need to eat and avoid to starve cancer cells before they take hold, shut down the inflammation that fuels them, and actually repair the DNA damage that starts the whole process in the first place. I'm Dr. Thomas Seyfried, and this might be the most important video you watch this year. Let's start with something that most people have completely backwards. Most people think cancer is something that just happens to you, like lightning striking out of nowhere, but that is not how cancer actually works. Cancer is a process, a slow, step by step biological breakdown that happens over months, sometimes years, before a single tumor ever appears. And at the very beginning of that process, at the absolute root of it, is something called DNA damage. Every single day, the cells in your body are under attack. Pollution in the air you breathe, pesticides in the food you eat, ultraviolet radiation from the sun, and even the normal metabolic reactions happening inside your own cells. All of these produce what scientists call free radicals. These are unstable molecules that crash into your DNA like tiny wrecking balls, breaking strands, corrupting the genetic code, and creating errors in the instructions your cells use to function. Now, your body has repair mechanisms for this, enzymes that rush in like microscopic construction crews and fix the damage. But when the damage comes faster than the repairs can keep up, when the assault is constant and relentless, those errors start to accumulate. And when enough errors stack up in the wrong places, a normal healthy cell can flip. It loses its programming. It forgets how to die on schedule like it's supposed to, and it starts to multiply out of control. That is how cancer begins. Here is a number that should stop you in your tracks. According to research published in the journal Nature, scientists estimate that each one of your cells suffers somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 DNA damaging events every single day. Every single day. Now, most of that damage gets repaired, but even if just a tiny fraction of it doesn't, if your repair systems are overwhelmed or depleted, the errors build up over time. And this is where what you eat becomes not just a health choice, but a biological life or death decision, because certain foods contain compounds that directly power up those DNA repair enzymes. They don't just slow the damage, they actively help your body fix what's already broken. And one of the most remarkable of these compounds is something called sulforaphane. You've probably never heard that word before, but you've absolutely eaten the food that contains it: broccoli. Specifically, broccoli sprouts, the young 3 day old seedlings that look like tiny alfalfa sprouts. Research from Johns Hopkins University found that broccoli sprouts contain anywhere from 20 to 100 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli. And sulforaphane does something that most pharmaceutical drugs can only dream of doing. It activates a master switch in your cells called the NRF2 pathway. And when that switch turns on, it triggers the production of over 200 protective enzymes all at once. These enzymes neutralize carcinogens, repair DNA damage, and do something that is truly extraordinary. They actually suppress the growth of cancer cells that have already formed. A landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tested sulforaphane on bladder cancer cells. The results were stunning. Sulforaphane didn't just slow the cancer cells, it caused them to self destruct through a process called apoptosis. That's the programmed cell death mechanism that cancer cells normally escape. Sulforaphane essentially reminds them how to die, and it does this while leaving healthy cells completely unharmed. No healthy cell damage, no toxic side effects, just targeted, precise elimination of the cancerous ones. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is the part most doctors aren't telling you yet. Cancer cells are, in a very literal sense, addicted to sugar. This is not a metaphor. This is established biochemistry, first described by the Nobel Prize winning scientist Otto Warburg back in the 1920s, and confirmed by modern research countless times since. Cancer cells have a fundamentally different metabolism than healthy cells. Where healthy cells can burn fat, protein, and sugar for energy, cancer cells are almost completely dependent on glucose, on sugar. They consume it at a rate up to 200 times faster than normal cells. In fact, this is actually how PET scans work in cancer detection. Doctors inject a radioactive form of glucose into the bloodstream and watch where it gets absorbed the fastest. The cancer cells light up like Christmas trees because they're gobbling the sugar so aggressively. Now, think about what that means for your diet. Every time you eat refined sugar, white bread, sodas, processed cereals, candy, everything with a high glycemic index, you are flooding your bloodstream with the exact fuel that cancer cells need to grow. You are, whether you realize it or not, feeding them. And the insulin spike that follows a high sugar meal doesn't just deliver glucose. Insulin itself is a growth signal. It tells cells to multiply, and cancer cells have insulin receptors too, meaning that blood sugar spike is essentially sending a growth command directly to any cancer cells already present in your body. This is not meant to frighten you. This is meant to empower you. Because if cancer cells need sugar to grow and you can control your blood sugar, then you have far more influence over your cancer risk than you might have been told. Now, let's talk about the second major battleground, because DNA damage and blood sugar are only part of the story. The other massive factor, one that researchers now consider just as important, is chronic inflammation. You know inflammation, you've seen it. When you cut your finger, it gets red, swollen, warm. That is acute inflammation, your immune system rushing in to fight infection and repair damage. That kind of inflammation is good. That kind of inflammation saves your life. But chronic inflammation is something completely different. Chronic inflammation is like a fire that never goes out, a low grade, persistent immune response that smolders inside your body day after day, month after month, year after year. And chronic inflammation doesn't just damage your joints or make you feel tired or foggy, it directly promotes cancer growth. Here's why. Inflammatory molecules called cytokines, particularly one called NFKB, actively suppress your immune system's ability to detect and destroy cancer cells. They create what scientists call a pro-tumorigenic microenvironment. In plain language, they make your body a friendlier place for cancer to grow. A study published in the journal Cancer Cell found that chronic inflammation promotes cancer at every stage, from the initial DNA mutation all the way through tumor formation and metastasis. It's not just a risk factor, it's an active participant. So, what drives chronic inflammation? The list is long, but the biggest dietary culprits are vegetable oils high in omega 6 fatty acids, things like corn oil, soybean oil, and sunflower oil, which are found in almost every processed food on the market. Trans fats, refined carbohydrates, processed meats loaded with nitrates, and a gut microbiome that's been disrupted by antibiotics, artificial sweeteners, and a lack of fiber. All of these things keep that inflammatory fire burning. And now, here is the part I really want you to pay attention to, because this is the turning point. The same foods that starve cancer cells of sugar, repair DNA damage, and put out the inflammatory fire, they are largely the same foods. There is massive overlap, and getting more of them into your life is not about following some extreme elimination diet. It's about understanding the biology and making smarter, more deliberate choices. Omega 3 fatty acids found in wild salmon, sardines, mackerel, flax seeds, and walnuts are perhaps the most powerful anti inflammatory nutrients known to science. They directly compete with the omega 6 fatty acids that drive inflammation, reducing the production of those cancer promoting cytokines. A meta analysis published in the BMJ looked at data from over 800,000 people and found that higher omega 3 intake was associated with a significantly reduced risk of several cancers, including colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. The key is the ratio. In modern Western diets, people are eating anywhere from 15 to 25 times more omega 6 than omega 3. Our ancestors ate roughly a 1:1 ratio. Closing that gap is one of the most impactful dietary changes you can make. Then there's turmeric, specifically its active compound curcumin. Curcumin has been studied in over 3,000 peer reviewed papers for its effects on cancer. 3,000. It has been shown to inhibit NFKB, that primary inflammation driver, to suppress tumor angiogenesis, which is the process by which tumors build their own blood supply to feed themselves, and to induce apoptosis in cancer cells across at least 12 different cancer types. One study published in the journal Anti-Cancer Research found that curcumin was effective against cancerous cells from breast, lung, colon, prostate, and pancreatic cancer, among others. The challenge with curcumin is that it's poorly absorbed on its but pairing it with black pepper increases its bioavailability by up to 2000%. So, that golden milk latte or that turmeric spiced curry with a pinch of black pepper is actually doing something real inside your body. Berries, particularly blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries, contain compounds called ellagic acid and anthocyanins that have been shown to slow the reproduction of cancer cells and block enzymes that cancer cells need to invade surrounding tissue. A study from Ohio State University found that black raspberry powder significantly reduced the development of esophageal cancer in animal models by up to 60%. Berries also have one of the lowest glycemic impacts of any fruit, meaning they don't spike your blood sugar. They starve cancer cells while simultaneously feeding your antioxidant defenses. That is a genuine double win. Green tea deserves its own moment here. The compound in green tea called EGCG, epiglycation gallate, has shown remarkable ability to target cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are the most dangerous cells in any tumor. They're the ones that survive chemotherapy. They're the ones that cause relapse, and EGCG appears to attack them specifically, while also reducing angiogenesis and switching on cancer suppressor genes that cancer had switched off. A large study conducted in Japan following over 40,000 people found that those who drank 5 or more cups of green tea daily had significantly lower rates of certain cancers and dramatically lower rates of all-cause mortality. Garlic and its relative allicin, released when garlic is crushed or chopped, activates the body's own antioxidant enzymes, particularly glutathione peroxidase, which is one of the most important DNA protecting enzymes your body makes. The World Health Organization actually recommends 1 clove of fresh garlic per day as a general health measure based on the evidence around its cancer protective properties. And here is something most people don't realize: fiber is not just about digestion. Your gut bacteria, the trillions of microorganisms living in your intestines, ferment dietary fiber and produce compounds called short chain fatty acids, particularly one called butyrate. Butyrate is remarkable. It directly feeds the cells lining your colon, reducing inflammation in the gut, and studies have shown it can actually trigger apoptosis in colorectal cancer cells. A high fiber diet essentially turns your gut into a cancer fighting factory. The American Institute for Cancer Research estimates that about 40% of all cancers are preventable through diet and lifestyle changes alone. 40%, that is not a small number. That is hundreds of thousands of lives every single year. I want to be clear about something important. I am not telling you that food alone can cure cancer if you already have it. I am not telling you to avoid your doctor or your treatment. What I am telling you, based on decades of peer reviewed science, is that the metabolic environment inside your body is not fixed. It is not static. Every meal you eat is shifting it one way or the other. Every meal is either turning up the inflammatory fire or turning it down, either flooding cancer cells with their preferred fuel or cutting off their supply, either depleting your DNA repair enzymes or replenishing them. You are not powerless. You are, in fact, making one of the most powerful health choices available to you 3 times a day, every single day, and now you know which direction to point those choices. So, the action plan is this: add broccoli sprouts to your salads or smoothies, swap refined oils for olive oil, and increase your omega 3 foods. Eat a small handful of mixed berries every single day. Add turmeric with black pepper to your cooking. Drink 2 to 3 cups of green tea daily. Crush your garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking. That activates the allicin. Dramatically reduce your sugar and processed food intake. And eat more fiber, beans, lentils, vegetables, whole grains to feed the gut bacteria that produce butyrate. None of this is complicated. None of this requires a prescription. But all of it is supported by real, rigorous, peer reviewed science. And the cumulative effect of making these changes consistently over time is profound. You are essentially changing the biological terrain of your own body, making it a place where cancer cells struggle to survive, where inflammation